Happy New Year, everyone. Yay. Welcome back to the Healing Growth Podcast. My name is Saiton Riga, and this is a podcast where we talk about healing trauma in an African faith context. It's a new year, and so this episode is about starting over. Welcome to 2023. I think we can still say this till the end of January. I'm excited and refreshed from my break, and I hope you are as well. I'm delighted to have you on. Today's episode is about starting over, and New Year's come with so much hope and for a fresh start, and we step into it expecting a lot of good things. Whether what we hope happens depends on many other things, being aligned to God's will in our lives, as well as the choices that we make. But I want to talk about a different starting over. The kind of starting over that happens because you don't want things to remain the same. This starting over involves a transition between old and new, and it's not the instant old year, new year change that we experience at midnight on 31st. So it's a slower one. And it's one that happens often in life, even though we don't always talk about it. We're used to the transitions that we seek out, like a new relationship, marriage, a new car, a house, a baby, a job, a scholarship, and more. And we don't really talk about the transitions that are unexpected. There's a shame we carry because we're so used to seeing other people's highlight reels and their comeback stories that we don't really talk enough about the transition that leads to starting over. For example, if you lose your job, or if a relationship unexpectedly ends, or if something like your landlord decides to give you notice. Usually it's the other way around. But if it's your landlord, it's unexpected and you then have to make a transition that you didn't plan to. The truth about being in a season of transition is that there is a lot to let go of. The ways of living life change, and the fact that we haven't normalized this often makes people keep trying to go back to the things they used to do that used to work. And when we don't realize that it's not working, we keep trying to apply force and pressure and acceleration to the same old thing so that it can achieve what it used to, but it isn't anymore. When we can tell people that transition seasons require change, and it's not the end of the world to be in a space where you don't know anymore and what used to work doesn't work anymore, people are able to identify where they are and adjust accordingly. If you think about life, everything has seasons of flourishing and fruitfulness, seasons of building and darkness. Before the plant can give you a harvest, it's been dug deep in the ground, watered, and then it had to push its way through the soil to find the sunlight. Once it's out, it has to grow as a young plant, fight the pests, use all the nutrients and fertilizer to create flowers and then fruits, and then grow those to ripeness. And then, when the harvest season is over, the tree or plant is left bare, and for some plants, they're removed from the ground. In the West, there's winter, which is dark and cold. Some countries don't even get to see the sun for months. And there are animals that spend that entire season in hibernation. Then there's spring, which is the beginning of the plants growing and thawing out from the winter. And then the summer, which is a fruiting and fruitfulness of things. And then the autumn, where the leaves are shed, and then it starts to become cold again and back to winter. I'd read the chapter in Ecclesiastes, which talks about a time for everything. And I don't think I'd ever internalized or read that first line which says, for everything, there's a season, a right time for every intention under heaven. Then it continues to say, a time to search and a time to give up, a time to keep and a time to discard. I feel like this is so profound in a culture that emphasizes more and bigger and keep accumulating. We lose focus on this truth. We so often keep looking for certain things and to increase in places where there is nothing for us. I dare say the biggest hindrance to starting over is not knowing when to give up and grieve what you had hoped for, what you had planned, and what you expected in contrast to what you have. We tie our worth to things and titles, and that makes it so much harder for us to move on because we don't know who we are outside of the title or the thing. Who are you outside of the manager title? Who are you if you're not working in company X? Who are you if you're not in a relationship with person Y? Who are you if you don't end up with person Z or move to country A? The truth is, you were a person before all of these titles and all of these connections, and you will be a person valuable and worthy long after these titles and connections are gone. Disentangling yourself can be painful because many times we surround ourselves with people who value us because of the titles and the connections. Disentanglement may mean separation from certain people and circles, but there are people out there who see you for who you are and treasure you far more than the titles and the connections. This is sometimes why we fight so hard to hang on to where we are because the cost of leaving and walking away seems unimaginable. I want to reassure you, it's possible. And there is another way if you would be willing to just let go. If I am to list down the jobs that I have done, there are many, not in order, but I've worked in marketing at an e-commerce company where my boss at the time didn't understand digital marketing. I have been a stylist, an online writer way back in 2009 when PayPal didn't work, and your money had to go through 3 or 4 people, each taking a cut before you get it. I have been an assistant in a TV show, a salesperson in a fashion line, a writer, mini web designer, shop assistant, digital manager, and a marketing manager. And in between there have been many failed attempts. And there were jobs where I left and others which let go of me. And one of the hardest things has been to let that not define who I am. Who I am is reflected in my internal heart and mind. These are things that I do, but they don't reflect the entirety of who I am as a person. And I want that to be something that you can go and chew on and think about. Who are you outside of all of this? I find that the opportunity cost for switching careers is often seen as too high, and many would rather stay. But I want to share something that I heard from Tim Ross recently, that every experience that we have, even the ones that we feel don't work, are not failures. They are learning experiences that add to the tools we need for life. And all of these skills will eventually be used somewhere. I found that so profound, and I wondered if more of us could look at the things and the places where we carry shame for not succeeding or looking like what the picture of success is, and whether we could turn that around into appreciation for ourselves, for trying and learning how to do something new, or learning that this thing doesn't work for us. Maybe this could free us into walking away when it is time for that. In this last season for me, I realized I'd carried a lot of shame around work. My last position, I knew after a couple of years that I was not going to continue this career path. I didn't know what I was going to do next, but I just was sure about what I wasn't going to be doing. But I had an expectation that as I was leaving, I would be going for greater and bigger, even though I didn't know what that greater and bigger was. I did not have an expectation that this rest stop would be this long or this dark or this life-altering. I remember the optimism with which I told people I was going to just take a short rest and then start over again. I was going to leave or delete my Twitter, which back then was unthinkable, given how addicted I was to it and all the opinions and threads and the integral way it was tied into my personality and how people knew me. And for me, it was meant to be just a brief stop. I've almost always worked and had no problems getting the jobs. But in this season, I feel like God put me on pause to deal with the very many things that I was carrying that I didn't even know I was carrying. Even the Twitter, I've never really quite gone back, and I don't have a need for it as much as I used to. This pause has been different, but it has redefined who I am and made me more clear about the things that I desire in life and the path that I'm on. And even where there's no certainty, there's security for me in knowing that all things will work out. During this period, I have been fortunate to have a support system that has held me down through the sifting and the figuring things out. And I believe that the pause was necessary so that I shift deeply the direction of my life, heal my deepest wounds, and be a better human, a better wife, a better mother, a better friend. Another gem I will share from Tim Ross is if you don't properly grieve, you won't properly leave. The grief of realizing that the grades weren't enough, or the expectations were not met, or that the job was lost, whether you didn't get it, or whether you were fired or let go, or whether it was an abusive situation, that the relationship didn't work, whether it was a couple of weeks or months or years, or that the person won't apologize, that the dream didn't work out, whether a business. For me, the grief was over the childhood I had, the dreams and the fantasies that kept me alive that were not true, the fact that I was actually wounded and not the unharmed survivor that I thought I was. There was grief in letting go of my career as I knew it and not stepping into another position immediately while I saw my peers rising. There was the grief that not working creates, which is it changes your financial situation as well. And that was hard, but you come out on the other side. Even through the therapy, there was grief in being a struggling mother because there were days when the therapy completely wiped me out. Grief in not being able to hold myself together, like I guess the people you see on social media, which is each of us. There was so much grief, and I'm thankful I cried and processed it all with my therapist, my coach, my husband, my friends. It made me realize how there's so much grief in daily life that we ignore and put it on the side. But it keeps us in a situation where we keep going back to what we should leave. We have so much pressure to appear as if everything is fine and that nothing makes us waver. And I do believe that you do not need to share this with everyone, but you need people who are safe places, safe harbors to lay it all down. I am a proponent of therapy with the right therapist and safe relationships. Not all your friends and family will be able to handle you changing and the questions that you're asking and what you're processing. You need people who can handle your most delicate journey with empathy, kindness, and prayer. Look for them. Keep them close. Once you have grieved, you're able to let go of the things whose time has passed, the things which were destroying us. I dare say the fight to hold on depletes us more than trying to forge a new path. It's exhausting in a way that ravages us because there's no hope there, and oftentimes, if we are honest, deep down you know this. Once you start allowing yourself to grieve and let go, there's a peace and clarity even when there's a darkness and not knowing what is next. The first part of the journey to starting over means a lot of soul searching and prayer. I feel like in the last 3 years, there's been a lot of shedding of the beliefs I had, attitudes, and ways of thinking that either haven't served me or harmed me or just weren't true. In the place of retreat and letting go, it's important to take stock of things and evaluate each one. If you've watched Marie Kondo, it's kind of like the same thing, but with prayer and soul searching. You can discover so much about who you are and what you truly want as opposed to what you believed you were or thought you needed to be in order to fit in or be worthy. If you were one of those kids with journals, you could go back and see what and who you were and what you wanted. And even though it may not be possible to go back in the exact same way, you can look into how to incorporate some of these dreams back into your life. I also process heavily with music. I am one of those people who can listen to a song over and over again. I can sleep listening to a song and wake up and listen to it the whole day, especially when it has words that express what I'm struggling with. I feel like songs bookmark my pain and my joy, the seasons and the experiences that I have. Yesterday, I was reminded of this song. I'll read out the lyrics because although I have the authority to play it, I still need time to figure out how to make sure Spotify knows that I have permission so that I don't get kicked off of the platform. I will put a link for the song in the description and you can go listen to it. The words are, Sometimes I don't know what to say to you. Should I have it figured out when I pray to you? Nashindwa la kusema, don't want to waste your time. I want to talk, but what's my line? The song is What's My Line? Rigga featuring Lisa Oduanor off the album Urban Prayers. So this song was rewritten 9 times, and it was a song that marked my frustration in 2013, which was one of my best and worst years. And in that year, I couldn't pray, so I would play the song over and over and over. Listening to this song reminded me that I made it out, and that this was the darkest hour before dawn. But it was interesting to me that this same song was rewritten so many times, and what eventually came out of it was something that spoke to me and I'm sure many others. It reminded me the importance of starting over. If you've been faithful with your letting go, the starting over can seem daunting. How do you start? And I'll answer this with what I have been doing, day by day, with a childlike hope and faith. Kids have the greatest ability to start over. And I think it's one of the things that we can learn from them. They don't carry the weights that we do, and they have the excitement and anticipation to just start, just ask, and just do the things that they feel they should do. So maybe the thing is to write that email or text, write that paragraph, write that song. Maybe apply for that job, but make the decision to step into your next. And then try again the next day and the next. Do the things that require your participation alone and make your progress. And also do the things that require other people. Keep reaching out. Out of the ashes, we will rise. And I say this as someone who's still not completely out of this season, but one approaching this new year with hope. I have been able to write again. The podcast episodes are about 2,000 words. This one, I think, went way over. But I have been writing more than I ever have. I think the last time I wrote this much was uni. And I have started creating art and products again. I am happier. I can see so much more sunshine in my life. And even though there are still fundamental questions I don't have answers to, there is progress. You can make progress and not have a complete plan. You can be grieving and healing at the same time. One ends and feeds into another. Some days are more grieving and the next are more joy. And then with time, the grief ebbs away and there's a lot more to look forward to. You can start again and again if you need to. There's more sunshine and there is more waiting for you. And so I pray for you the blessing of open doors when you start again and new paths to a fulfilling life. Thank you for listening to the Healing Growth Podcast. You can find us on Instagram as healing.growth and on Facebook as Healing Growth. Thank you for listening, and please share this podcast with your friends and follow us on Instagram and Facebook. My name is Saiton Rigga from Healing Growth. Bye-bye.